Well, Alejandro Iñárritu's film *The Revenant* has been one of the most talked about movies of the year. In fact, just recently it won several Oscars. I saw the movie and can testify that it's a very involving tale. And the first 20 minutes are some of the most compelling viewing I've had in a long time. It features this really horrifically vivid Indian attack, arrows whizzing by and bodies falling and so on. But then what everyone talks about, and it is the most striking scene in the movie, is this absolutely vividly realized grizzly bear attack on the main character that just goes on and really grabs your attention. I can say this too, I was so involved in this movie that I became really physically sick as I watched the adventures and sufferings of the main characters. So it's a very compelling film. It centers around this fellow Hugh Glass, who actually was a real historical figure, an early 19th century fur trapper operating in kind of southern Canada and the western U.S. back in this period, right after the Lewis and Clark expedition. So pretty primitive time. After being nearly killed by the bear in the mauling I referenced above, Glass is so appallingly wounded that he's just carried around on this sort of simple litter, and it looks like he's going to die any minute. And they take him through extremely rugged country at the depth of the winter. In fact, so wounded is he, and such a burden is he to the rest of the group, that many of them think they should just either leave him for dead or outright kill him. His son defends him. His son is called Hawk, and he's a half Native American, half white teenager. But Hawk is opposed especially by a character called Fitzgerald. And Fitzgerald is a pretty ruthless character, and he just feels they have to deal with this problem. And so when the other ones have wandered off someplace, he in cold blood kills Hugh Glass's son, Hawk, and then buries the defenseless Glass in a shallow grave and leaves him basically for dead. And then the rest of the group moves on. But in the first of actually many sort of death and resurrection scenes, rebirth scenes, Hugh Glass, despite all odds, manages to crawl out of his grave. It's a very poignant scene, actually. He then comes over to the body of his son, and he sort of lies, on his neck. And most people think it suggests he just wants to die with him. But it becomes clear he's not ready to die, and he pushes himself forward. This is probably, after the bear attack, the most difficult part of the movie, because you see the suffering of this man. One scene that stays in my mind vividly is he drinks water, but the water comes right out the wounds in his neck from the bear attack. He has to cauterize the wounds with gunpowder, another terrible scene. At one point he's in a cave and you think he's safe for the moment, but another Indian attack ensues and he has to crawl himself into this raging river and to move down it while arrows whiz by his head. Another very memorable scene is he's once again being attacked and he has to escape on horseback, but the horse goes right over a cliff and it falls into a tree and then into the ground, and the horse is killed. And then to survive, the now newly wounded Hugh Glass has to eviscerate the horse and then spend the night inside the body to stay warm enough, et cetera, et cetera. In a word, it's like something out of Dante's Inferno or something out of the book of Job. You're just watching this man suffer. Now, what's driving him all this time? See, that's the heart of the movie. What's driving him is a desire for vengeance. This admittedly terrible man, this Fitzgerald, who killed Hawk, the son, in cold blood, and then left Glass, horrifically wounded, left him for dead, put him in a shallow grave. I mean, he's a terrible man. And so Hugh Glass becomes this single-minded seeker of vengeance. And I think a really cool symbolic moment, he becomes the bear. So as you watch him during this time, he's covered in furs. He barely speaks. He's so wounded, so hurt. He grunts and he groans and he crawls, and he sounds and looks for all the world like a bear. Now, mind you, the bear in the attack was simply defending her cubs, doing what bears naturally do. Well, here's now this man reacting to the killing of his own cub, his own son. And so he becomes like this wild animal. One of the turning points of the movie is his encounter with a Pawnee Indian, who tells him his story of vengeance. His family had been killed, many of his family had been killed by white people, and the Pawnee warrior was filled with a desire for revenge. Until it occurred to him that vengeance is best left to the Creator. It's very interesting. Right after that scene, Hugh Glass has a dream. And in the dream, he's in a field, and in the background is a Christian church. And while standing in front of that church, he has an encounter in the dream with his dead son, who's now in the heavenly realm. So something is happening to him spiritually as this lesson that vengeance is best left to God sinks in. Now, without giving away too much more of the plot, things come to a climax when eventually Glass finds Fitzgerald, hunts him down. They have a great mano-a-mano combat. And at the moment when he could kill him, he remembers what the Pawnee Indian had said to him. And at that point, he doesn't kill him, but lets him drift down the river. Okay. What's happening here spiritually? Well, I think what Iñárritu is showing us in this movie, as brutally as you can, are the facts on the ground. What this world is like. It's not an altogether pretty place. It's filled with lots of violence. It's filled with intense conflict at all levels, human and non-human, the natural level too. Conflict, vengeance, violence. It is true, I think he's suggesting, that in this world, looked at in itself, the law of retaliation, the lex talionis, is the law of the jungle. Eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That is the law that governs the ordinary world. But there's a breakthrough. There's a breakthrough of grace, and it came through the Pawnee warrior. He understood something, that there's a reality that transcends this world, namely the reality of God, God the Creator, and that justice, the execution of justice, is best left to Him. And see, with that breakthrough, something opens up, a sort of path forward, a path to liberation. Because look around our world today. I mean, this story is utterly relevant to our time. Think of the terrorism that dominates so much of the globe. Think of the vengeance. Because you killed my son, I'm going to kill your son. And on it goes, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in our own streets. Look at the violence of gangs in our country. It's the same thing. It's the law of retaliation, the law of the jungle. What we require, it seems to me, is precisely this breakthrough of grace. When you become aware that this world is not all there is, there's a higher world where a higher justice obtains, and out of which a higher justice for this world can come. It's in the surrender to that power that we alone are going to find a way forward. See, I think that ultimately is the reason for seeing this movie. The bear attack and all that is certainly vivid, and it's interesting and fun to watch. But the real reason to watch it is it shows a path forward out of the desperate violence that dominates our world.